All right, welcome to Unit 5, Lesson 1, Theorems and Postulates about Perpendicular Lines. The first thing that I'm going to ask is that you just look at this with your group, and I'm going to ask you several questions. You will pause the video afterwards and make up some conclusions, and then play the video some more, and I will tell you some conclusions that I see from this. So here we have two lines that intersect and they form a right angle. My first question for you is, what's something that you can say about all right angles? Let's go ahead and pause the video and talk amongst your group. Okay. The conclusion I'm thinking of when I think about all right angles is I see that all right angles are congruent. They all measure 90 degrees, so they're all congruent. And that's actually a theorem. The next idea I want to talk about is that if I have these two lines here and they are perpendicular, which means that they form this right angle here, what else does this intersection do? Is there anything else I can say about this intersection? So go ahead, pause the video, and talk amongst your group. Okay. The thing to notice about perpendicular intersections is that there's not just one right angle that's formed. There is 4 right angles that are formed. So for every perpendicular intersection, there are 4 right angles. Next, I want to look at this line here. So get rid of that, and I will get rid of this angle. Line AB and line FG here are intersecting. And what I'm going to tell you is that this angle right here and this angle right here, they are congruent. So I have 2 adjacent congruent angles. What can I say about this intersection? So pause the video and talk with your group and come up with what you think can be said about this intersection, given that I have 2 congruent adjacent angles. Okay, this part makes you kind of think about what happens in an intersection, what's going on here. Well, we have to think this whole line right here is 180 degrees, which means that these two angles here have to both add up to 180 degrees. Now, if they add up to 180 degrees, that must mean that, and they're congruent, sorry. They add up to 180 and they're congruent, they have to be the same thing. 180 divided by 2 is 90. Therefore, if you have an intersection with 2 adjacent congruent angles, that intersection is a perpendicular intersection. That is a conclusion that can be made. If these two are congruent and adjacent, or these two, or these two, or these two, then it is a perpendicular intersection. Okay, now I'm going to get rid of that line FG, bring back line CD, then I'm going to throw in this line. And what I'm going to tell you here is that this angle here and this angle here are both acute angles. And they're both adjacent angles. So what can you tell me if I have 2 adjacent acute angles that meet at a perpendicular intersection? What can I say about these 2 angles whenever they're here at this perpendicular intersection? So go ahead and pause the video and discuss this with your group. Okay? Now, to think about this, you have to kind of bring your knowledge back to the very beginning when we were talking about angles. And we know that perpendicular angle is 90 degrees. Well, if two angles add up to 90 degrees, they're called complementary. So what we can say is that if we have two sides of adjacent acute angles that are perpendicular, then the angles are complementary. So these two angles here are complements of each other. And then the very last thing that I want to talk about here is that if I were to put a point, let's say right here, how many lines can I put through this point that will be perpendicular to line AB? So how many lines can I put through this point will be perpendicular to AB? Go ahead and pause the video and discuss that with your group. The answer is 1. There's only one line that I can draw through point J here that will be perpendicular to AB. Okay, now what I would like for you to do is to watch part 2 where these theorems are formalized with your group and write notes and discuss that.